the White House might have finally experienced a red line, a genuine red line, because there are all these stories littered across the news today about how the Biden administration has halted weapons shipments to Israel. Now, I want to be clear that this might just be smoke and mirrors. I'll explain why, but first let me give you the details as it's being reported. So the shipment being prepared for delivery to Israel last week, which has now been halted, included 1,800 2,000-pound bombs and 1,700 500-pound bombs. The Biden administration is reviewing other planned transfers that are not set to ship imminently, a White House official said. That pertains to 6,500 joint direct attack munitions, which convert free fall dumb bombs into precision guided weapons. Now, anonymous White House sources also confirmed in interviews with the Washington Post that the pause in weapons deliveries to Israel is in fact meant to reevaluate our military support for the Israeli Defense Forces after Netanyahu decided to basically invade Rafah against the wishes of the Biden administration. John Hudson writes in the Washington Post, Israel should not launch a major ground invasion in Rafah where more than 1 million people are sheltering with nowhere to go, said a senior administration official. Explaining the US decision to pause the weapons shipments, quote, we are especially focused on the end use of the 2,000-pound bombs and the impact they could have in dense urban settings, as we have seen in other parts of Gaza. Now, look, the reason why there's this panic in regard to a ground invasion in Rafah is because of the fact that you have more than 1 million, some reports indicate as many as 1.5 million displaced Palestinians sheltering in this tiny, tiny, tiny stretch of land. And you have to keep in mind, Gaza was already densely populated. Now you have a densely populated region of the world, the population within that region, basically getting displaced into an even smaller stretch of land. And so dropping 2,000-pound bombs in Rafah, doing a ground invasion in Rafah, will take a war that has already seen a disproportionate number of innocent civilians slaughtered and basically put that terrible atrocity on steroids. You're gonna see a lot more innocent people killed. Biden knows, I don't know how immoral Biden finds that, to be quite honest with you, because Biden has stood by Israel regardless of what Israel has wanted to do. But I think Biden has also realized that there are some real political ramifications associated with endless commitment to Israel, regardless of how it carries out this war. So he might be trying to have his cake and eat it too here, because there hasn't really been a final decision made on these weapons. The weapons could very well still be sent to Israel. This is just a pause. Let's just keep it real. And then not only that, you have to keep in mind that Israel has already been flooded with so many weapons, thanks to the United States, that a simple pause in weapons isn't gonna stop them from invading Rafah. And in fact, I want you to hear from a Likud party official. I'm sure you've heard of her before. Her name is Tal Gottlieb. She had some threats for the United States and Gaza following word that the Biden administration is pausing weapon shipments to Israel. Let's watch.
ארצות הברית מאיימת שלא תיתן לנו טילים מדויקים. וואלה, יש לי חדשות לארצות הברית. יש לנו טילים לא מדויקים. ויש לנו את הזכות להתגונן. אז אולי במקום להשתמש בטיל מדויק ולהוריד חדר ספציפי, או בניין ספציפי, אני אשתמש בטילים הלא מדויקים שלי. ואני פשוט אמוטט 10 בניינים. 10 בניינים. 10 בניינים. זה מה שאני אעשה.
Pausing here to deliver some honest truth as we do in our news coverage as well. TYT is facing challenges, guys, as the entire industry is. You know who could make the difference? You. If you hit the join button below, it's gonna make all the difference and keep us in business. We appreciate you, thank you.
So for our audio listeners, she threatened to drop bombs and collapse 10 buildings instead of use precision guided munitions as retaliation for the United States doing this pause on the weapons delivery. So she's threatening to kill civilians in Gaza. She's specifically referring to buildings in Gaza that she will intentionally bomb and collapse in order to send the United States and the taxpayers, by the way, who are funding these weapons for Israel, a message. I mean, look, I've said this before, I'm gonna say it again. The thing that really gets under my skin, especially as an American who sees the real pain and suffering that Americans in this country are going through and the neglect that they've experienced by our government, right? When I see this sense of entitlement from other countries about how we must fund their wars or how we must give them weapons, like they are entitled to our taxpayer money, that infuriates me beyond words, okay? And it should infuriate every American beyond words, because that taxpayer money didn't just fall from trees. That is money that we pay into the system that is supposed to improve our lives. I don't know, have you guys experienced your lives improve? Have you experienced your hard-earned taxpayer money being redirected back to your community, to your state, to your country to make it better for yourself and for your fellow Americans? That is the thing that frustrates me. And then for her to turn around in that angry, entitled tone and threaten to kill more innocent civilians if Israel doesn't get its way is just, but the college protesters are the bad guys, and we need to have endless House hearings about that in order to virtue signal to AIPAC that our members of Congress are fully on board with anything and everything Israel wants. But let's move on, because there are some more details as reported by the Washington Post in regard to the pause in weapons shipments. A second US official who, like others, spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss internal deliberations, described the move as a shot across the bow, intended to underscore to Israel or Israeli leaders the seriousness of US concerns about the offensive in Rafah, where an estimated 1.5 million displaced Palestinians are massed in camps near Gaza's border with Egypt. But again, don't feel too pleased with the Biden administration yet. Let's wait and see how this all really plays out, because there is a possibility that they're just gonna go ahead and greenlight the weapons shipment after all. And the United States, as I mentioned earlier, has flooded Israel with so many weapons that this pause really has no impact in regard to a ground invasion in Rafah. The Israeli military has enough weapons supplied by the US and other partners to conduct the Rafah operation if it chooses to cast aside US objections. And you have to keep in mind, there are conflicting objectives here when it comes to Joe Biden and Benjamin Netanyahu. Benjamin Netanyahu wants to hold on to power by keeping this war going as long as possible. Biden wants the war to end because it is hurting him electorally with his key voters, with the Democratic base. Also, none of the pauses apply to the billions of dollars in additional Israel aid passed by Congress last month. With regard to that, the Biden administration just approved $827 million worth of weapons and equipment for Israel in the latest tranche of foreign military financing. So in other words, this could very likely be smoke and mirrors, and it could be a more strategic attempt by the Biden administration to garner favor among Democratic voters who have been just absolutely disgusted with how this war has been carried out in Gaza, with the high number of civilian casualties in Gaza, and with the fact that the Biden administration really hasn't used any leverage to get a belligerent Netanyahu under control as he continues to conduct this war in a way that has led to the highest number of civilian casualties as possible. So, with that all in mind, knowing that Israel has more than enough weaponry already to carry out their ground offensive in Rafah, I want you to listen to a very panicky, lunatic in the Senate. This is Senator Lindsey Graham, who is heavily funded by weapons contractors, weapons manufacturers. There isn't a war this man hasn't loved. There isn't a war this man hasn't wanted to fund. And so during a Senate hearing today, he decided to go off on Lloyd Austin and give this insane statement. Let's watch.
This is obscene. It is absurd. Give Israel what they need to fight the war they can't afford to lose. This is Hiroshima and Nagasaki on steroids.
This is Hiroshima and Nagasaki on steroids. That is what Lindsey Graham said during an official Senate hearing today in regard to the Biden administration just briefly pausing weapons shipments to Israel, a country that has been flooded with American-made weapons. I mean, for a long time, but that's been put on steroids. Okay, you want to talk about steroids? That whole weapons shipment process has been put on steroids ever since this current war started on October 7th. Now, Biden is also hoping that a ceasefire will be reached before Israel intensifies its invasion into Rafah. And I want to be clear, the assault on Rafah has already begun. So the news reports, they're like, oh, Biden's hoping that Israel doesn't, do an invasion into Rafah. They've already begun bombing Rafah. There's footage of it. Like, let's not pretend like this hasn't already begun. Yesterday, it was reported that Israel also took control of the Rafah border crossing, which has been an incredibly critical area in which humanitarian aid has entered. It typically enters through the Rafah border crossing, but it's now been shut down since Israel has taken control of it. And as a result, humanitarian aid has come to a crashing halt. All the fuel that entered Gaza went through Rafah crossing, said Jeremy Kondonik, who is the president of Refugees International. The whole aid operation runs on fuel. So if the fuel is cut off, the humanitarian operation collapses. Water can't be pumped. Lights cannot be kept on in hospitals or whatever remains of hospitals in the Gaza Strip. Vehicles cannot distribute aid. Now, Israel shut the Rafah border crossing and today claimed that they have opened the Kerem Shalom crossing between Israel and the Gaza Strip. And I want to be clear, Israel ended up shutting down that border crossing after Hamas targeted it with some strikes. They killed 4 Israeli soldiers. And yeah, that was a stupid move because of course Israel is going to shut down that border crossing in retaliation for that. Now, Israel is claiming that they have since opened that border crossing, but humanitarian aid organizations claim that is not true. Kerem Shalom, a crossing between Israel and the Gaza Strip, was reopened Wednesday, Israel said, but the UN Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA, says that basically it was impassable, right? Palestinian refugees said it was impassable. There were other humanitarian aid organizations who said similar things. And if you look at footage of the humanitarian aid trucks that are just stalled in a long, long line outside of that border crossing, you'll see evidence of what these humanitarian aid organizations are claiming. The World Health Organization said Wednesday that with fuel unable to enter through Rafah, hospitals in southern Gaza only have 3 days of fuel left. Now cut that down to 2 days because that was a statement that they made just yesterday. And so the situation in Gaza has now worsened. Obviously, the very slow trickle of humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip was already a problem. Now it has come to a screeching halt. There is a full-blown famine in the northern half of the Gaza Strip. In fact, Cindy McCain, John McCain's wife, made that clear during an interview over the weekend. And she's not some hippy-dippy progressive. She's someone who married a war hawk like John McCain and is absolutely horrified at what she is seeing on the ground in Gaza, including in the north, where there is now a full-blown famine. So those are your updates on what's currently transpiring in Gaza. It's absolutely heartbreaking. And I don't really think that Netanyahu is genuinely interested in engaging in good faith ceasefire talks, because that would mean an end to the war. And an end to the war means having to be confronted with your own constituents who have been very aggressively protesting Benjamin Netanyahu even before this current war began. I mean, with the attempt to disempower the judicial branch of the Israeli government, you had mass protests in Israel. You have Benjamin Netanyahu facing very serious corruption charges. He doesn't want to face that. And he certainly doesn't want to face the consequences of his failure to keep Israelis safe on October 7th. So I think anyone who has fooled themselves into thinking that these ceasefire talks or Israel's participation in these ceasefire talks are actually done in good faith, you just have to wake up to what the motivating factors are for Netanyahu specifically. It's about political power. It's about not wanting to face the consequences for his own actions. And that's really running counter to what is best in releasing the hostages doing what's right for the Israeli citizens, and also doing what's right to protect as many human lives, civilian lives in the Gaza Strip. So there you have it. That's your update. I also want to just address one thing before we go to break. And I've been debating whether or not I address this. Sorry, I have an eyelash in my eye. It's driving me crazy. But I'm going to do it because it was something I was confronted with yesterday that was so deeply insulting, not just to me, but to my team, the people who work hard every single day to put this show together. So someone who's been a longtime viewer of the show, someone who I've communicated to directly, put something out online about how, oh, it's real nice that Anna and Cenk are passionate in defending Palestinian lives and everything. But I mean, does it really matter when they have a Zionist working for them? Okay. Basically, this viewer says that the work that we do as individuals on the main show does not matter because we happen to have one contributor that they disagree with on the network. One. So rather than judging individuals on an individual basis, rather than hearing what individuals have to say about this very serious topic and judge those individuals individually, this person has decided to totally trash my team and the work that we do because, again, they don't like one person. And so this is the kind of toxic purity testing that I see going on that I want no part of. And if you're gonna come to us after the torture we put ourselves through every single day to watch all of that, like heartbreaking footage, you guys don't know. And look, you don't know what it's like to sit alone in front of your computer literally all day long, watching these horrific videos, consuming this horrific content in order to research and produce the kinds of stories that we do for you guys, right? And then hear that hard work doesn't matter because there's one person on the network that individuals disagree with. If you're gonna insult my team over that purity nonsense, don't watch the show. I don't want you in the audience. If you are not capable of judging people individually, and if you are gonna take a massive crap on the hard work that we put in every single day because you disagree with one person, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Do not watch the show. That's it. It's that simple. I want smart people. I want adults. I want critical thinkers watching this show. But more importantly, I want people who actually respect the hard work that my producers put into this show every day. And if you're not gonna do that, you don't get my respect. And you don't get me crying over you, threatening not to watch the show.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. We really appreciate it, guys. And we appreciate it if you become members because that allows us to be independent, honest, progressive, all the things that you don't get from corporate media. And all of that is because of you guys. Hit the join button below and become one of us, become a young Turk.